In the last video, you set up Mongoose to hash user passwords. In this video, you're going to provide users with a brand new endpoint that will allow them to log in with their existing account. So they'll have to provide their credentials, their email and password, and it will be the job of that route to verify that there is a user with those credentials. So to get started, we'll be setting up the new route in the user router, and we'll also be working with the user model to set up a reusable function for finding a user by their credentials, by their email and password. To start though, let's head over to the user router and create our brand new route. I'm going to add this one just below the route for signing up, and this one will also use post. So router.post, we will have our route followed by our function. I'll define that as an async function with request and response. And this path is going to be the following: /users/login. This is the endpoint you'll use to log in with your existing account. Now, it's the job of this function to find a user by those credentials, by the email and the password. There are two ways we could structure this. The first way would be to add all of that code right inside of this function. We find a user by their email, then we go ahead and use that bcrypt compare method to compare the plain text password provided with the hash stored in the database. The alternative option would be to create a reusable function that does all of that for us, and that's the approach that we're going to take. So right here, what are we going to do? We're going to start off with a try catch block. And when we catch an error, we'll send back an error, but we'll focus on that a little bit later. Inside of try, what we're going to do is call a new method we're going to be setting up. So right here, const user, we're going to get a user back. We're going to use await for this async operation, and we're going to call user dot, and we're going to call something that we'll define in just a moment. So right here, while we do have pre-built-in options, we can also define our own. I'm going to create one called find by credentials. This is going to take in the email and the password, and it'll try to find a user by the email. It'll verify the password. It'll either return the user or it won't. So right here, let's go ahead and knock that out. What I'm going to do is pass in the email and the password, both of which will be provided as the body of the request. So that would be request.body.email as the first argument and request.body.password as the second. Now let's go ahead and actually create this function so this code works as expected. This happens over in the user model, and once again, it's only something we can do when we create a separate schema first, then pass that into the model. If I was still passing an object in as the second argument right here, we wouldn't be able to do what we're about to do. So right here, for the code we wrote before, I'll leave a little comment, hash the plain text password before saving. Then up above, we're going to attach something else to user schema. It's going to be user schema dot statics dot the method name. In this case, I'm choosing to create find by credentials, but I could call this anything that I want to. So by setting up a value on user schema dot statics, we're setting that up as something we can access directly on the model once we actually have access to it. So right here, user.findByCredentials will call whatever is defined on user schema.statics.findByCredentials. Now we're going to set this up as a function, and we'll set it up as an async function. It's going to accept those two arguments that we chose to provide. Right here, we can indeed use an arrow function as the this binding isn't going to play a role. And we're going to have our arguments, the email as the first one, and the password as the second one. Now it's our job to attempt to find the user by those pieces of information. We want to start by finding them by the email. We can't find them by the email and the password because we have the plain text password, but the hashed password is stored in the database. So we'll find them by the email first, then separately we'll verify that password. To get started, let's go ahead and find the user by the email. So const user, and then we'll use await with user.find1. Find1 is going to return a single user, and it's similar to find by ID, though instead of providing the ID, we provide an object with our search criteria. In this case, we're looking for a user whose email equals the argument value passed in for email. Now, in this case, we can just use the shorthand syntax to set that up. Now, if there is no user, that means there was no user with that email, and we want to go ahead and throw a new error. So right here, the condition, if there is no user, what are we going to do? We will use throw new error, which will immediately end the execution of this function, and we will throw the following error, unable to log in. So here we're saying, let's try to find that user by the email. If that doesn't work, then obviously we can't log in. Now, if that does work, the next thing we want to do is verify that password using the compare function we've used before. So const right here is match, and we will set that equal to, we'll use await with bcrypt.compare, which we have used before. We pass in as the first argument the plain text password, and as the second the hash. Now we know we found a user, otherwise this code wouldn't run, and we have user.password, which stores the password. Now if it's not a match, that's a problem too. So if the opposite of is match, so here we are checking if it's not a match. If it's not a match, this code will run, and we'll go ahead and throw a new error to stop the function execution and signal that the login process didn't work. Once again, unable to log in. When providing error messages for things like logging in, it's best to not be too specific. You don't want to say something like that email's registered, but your password is wrong, because it exposes more information than you might want to. Someone who's trying to gain access to the account now knows more than they otherwise should. In general, it's best to provide a single error saying the operation didn't work. In this case, unable to log in is nice and generic. Now, the last thing we want to do is actually return the user if they were found and the password is a match. Right here, return user. Now, with this in place, we can actually finish filling out the route over here in the user router. Now on the very next line, if an error didn't get thrown, we would have access to the user, and all we're going to do for the moment is send them back. So response.sendUser. We're not actually going to worry about providing them with details that they can use to perform other privileged operations later. So it's not like we're logging in long term, we're really just logging in order to see our own user profile. But once again, we're going to build off of this to create the complete system. Down below in catch, I'll use response.status to set up something like a 400, and I'll use sending back no content. The 400 alone is enough of a signal to let them know that logging in did not work. Now that we have this in place, we can actually test things out, but there is a problem. One of the most basic things you should set up when creating a login system is a restriction on the email. If a user already has an account registered with a specific email, another user should not be able to come along and use that same email to register an account again. So before we even try to log in, let's go ahead and fix that by adding a single line over here to the Mongoose schema. Under email, we're going to add a brand new property which can go anywhere you like. It is unique, and we're going to set it equal to true. Now, when we do this, it's going to create an index in our MongoDB database to guarantee uniqueness. Similar to how our IDs are unique, our emails for users now need to be unique as well. Now, here's the catch. In order to get this to work, we have to wipe the database and have it get recreated so the index can be set up. If you tried to create users right now, even though this code is in place, you'd be able to create users with the same emails. So to start, I'll be heading over to Robo3T, and we're going to go ahead and just completely drop our database. So I'll right-click the database. Yes, I do have other databases that I've created for development purposes. Right now, though, you want to delete the one that you've been working with. We're going to right-click it, go down to Drop Database, And once it's dropped, we can go ahead and just refresh things in the application, getting it to restart by saving any of the files. Now we're in a position where users shouldn't be able to create an account with an email if it's already registered, and login should always work as expected. Let's head over to Postman and test all of this out. So over here, I have the response data for the last time I created a user, but they have indeed been deleted. Let's go ahead and create our first user with the name, email, and password I already have in place. I'm going to send that off, and down below I get a 201, which is great. There is no user with that email since I just deleted everyone. We have the user created with their hashed password. All I'm going to do is fire off the exact same request again. This time though, it should fail, and that is exactly what's happening. Down here, we can see we have a duplicate key error. The email is already registered, and that's a problem. So now that we cannot sign up with the same email twice, let's go ahead and mess around with the login request. Whoops, I don't want to create a new collection. I want to add a new request to my existing collection. I'll call that login user. I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to take it and I'll move it up above just below create user, so we're keeping things nice and organized by what they do. Next up, I'm going to click on that, and that's going to bring us to our brand new request where we'll set things up. We have post, we have / we start off with localhost on 3000, then / users / login. Now we do have to provide our credentials as well. That is part of the request body. So body, raw, and we switch from text over to JSON, and then down below we provide the email, and we're also going to provide the password, the two things needed to log in correctly. Let's go ahead and actually test this out with the credentials that we just used to create that user. So it's Andrew@example.com and red12345 ! For me. Over here, email, Andrew@example.com, password red12345 ! I send this off, and down below, what do I get? I get a 200, and I see my user profile being sent back correctly, which is excellent. From here, we can go ahead and try to mess up the data. So for example, if I try to use 2 exclamation marks in the password, I would expect things to fail, and we're getting our 400 down below. If I fix the password but mess up the email, adding in 2 A's, I would expect that to fail as well. I send that off, and down below, I'm still getting a 400. Only when the email and the password perfectly match the user information do we get a 200, and do we get our user profile back. Now, this is not the complete process for logging in, but it is a great step in the right direction. We have the new route set up, and the new route knows how to verify the user's credentials, making sure there's actually a user that has that email and password. We're going to continue to build off of this in the next video, so let's go ahead and jump right into that.